setting a most profound Mahayana motivation, just as we have recited in that refuge and bodhicitta prayer, particularly in this module on how to develop bodhicitta, is generating the mind, wishing to become a Buddha, the two purposes, for ourselves to become a Buddha, not just for ourselves, but the purpose of that is to fulfill the needs, the aims of all sentient beings, bring all sentient beings out of the sufferings of samsara and guiding them to the full enlightenment, their own Buddhahood, so they can do the same for all other sentient beings. The job of a Buddha to continue to work for the benefit of sentient beings until there's no sentient beings left. So we've got a long way to go. Okay, so as I said, happy Mother's Day to all our kind mother sentient beings who have all been our mothers many, many times, previous lives, this life, future lives. Okay, so last time we were looking at the method equalizing and exchanging self with others. So I just want to sort of go on a little bit with that today. So this technique of equalizing, exchanging oneself with others, thinking that what we're talking about is we equalizing, in other words, instead of just looking at how I'm suffering and don't want to and how I want to be happy and all the ways of doing that, realizing each and every sentient being is in the same boat, that we all want to be free of suffering, we all want to be happy. So that's the equalizing. And then, of course, we can add in things like, well, there's one of me and there's countless other sentient beings. So actually, if I encompass in my mind everything I do for the benefit of countless sentient beings, it actually benefits me. Whether it benefits the countless sentient beings might be a moot point, but it certainly benefits me because I'm cultivating more and more that altruistic mind on the foundation of affectionate love, great compassion, great compassion, this mind, an altruistic mind of bodhicitta, on the basis of which I progress towards Buddhahood. So it's win-win. So the aim of this practice, and hopefully my intention is that we'll actually do this practice. I think I mentioned that last week. The aim is to train our minds to actually exchange ourselves with others. It doesn't mean taking on everybody's suffering, because we can't. Even the Buddha, if the Buddha could, the Buddha would. There'd be no, if Jesus Christ, nailed on the cross to take on the sufferings of the world, did it work? No. Was it infinitely compassionate? Yes. As His Holiness said, Jesus Christ, great Bodhisattva. Absolutely. No qualms. So, however, the suffering keeps happening because of the delusions, the afflicted states in our own minds. So in this way, to cultivate this, we contemplate two things: the faults of the self-cherishing mind, and then the advantages of cherishing others. So in the equalizing, exchanging self with others, these become then the next points. So disadvantages of cherishing ourselves, we might think, well, what's wrong with that? So there are a number of references, like in the Guru Puja, if we have a look, it very nicely outlines page 83, exchanging self and others. So here we go. Here's the practice. It's right there in a Guru Puja, right? And so if we're looking at disadvantages, it says LC 91, contemplating the faults of the self-cherishing mind, this chronic disease of cherishing myself, page 83, is the cause giving rise to my unsought suffering, 82, 83. Well, it's 82 if you want to look in Tibetan, go for it. Okay. But I'm referring to the English for ease. Perceiving this, I seek your blessings. So we're seeking the blessings of the Guru or the Buddha. To blame, begrudge. It says blame, begrudge, and destroy the monstrous demon of selfishness. So the blame, begrudge, and destroy. So in the 7-point mind training by Geshe Chökyi, it says put all the blame onto the one, or blame the one, banish the one who's to blame for everything. And the one is this mind of ignorance, of self-grasping, grasping at having a self, which it's innate in us. So we're born with that. But on top of that is the one that cherishes me, mine. So that's the mind we're talking about. Put the blame onto that, not out there. Put the blame onto the self-cherishing mind. Banish the one who is to blame for everything. So that's what that's referring to there in the Guru Puja. Suddenly the Guru Puja, as you go through, becomes more and more meaningful when you get the teachings, which is wonderful. So it means whatever suffering, whatever obstacles, whatever problems we have, whatever suffering that exists in the world is based on self-cherishing thought, ours and others. So this includes all the problems that we experience in our lives, but we can also look at it from a bigger perspective, or the wars, or the differences, disagreements between world leaders and so forth, or world leaders in their country. Yeah, it's no real laughing matter, is it? Disagreements at work, arguments in the family, at whatever level. When, COVID hit, as we say, 2020, April 2020, Rinpoche gave transmissions of 3 profound prayers by Tentong Gyalpo. One to dispel the suffering of disease, and one of them was to pacify or overcome war. One of them was that. And so it was famine, disease, and war. That's what I was thinking. What was the third one? Famine. And at the time, Rinpoche said, we're in this time of great degeneration where everybody at war with everyone at all levels, from interpersonal up to global. Right? And that's happening more and more. I don't know, sort of you hear one thing after another, these number of stabbings, domestic violence on the increase, and so forth and so forth. All these things are escalating. This is a time of great degeneration in the world. So we look at all of those, fighting between parents and children, partners, whatever, is all based, if we check up on the thought of cherishing oneself, I've got to protect this me, this I, who doesn't even exist anyway. So we're all a bit crazy, really. So another example here, and this is from Riba Rinpoche, How to Generate Bodhicitta, which was one of the 3 books, Lama Yeshe Wisdom Archives. So say you eat too much, just say, Mother's Day, meal, I don't know. I remember seeing, what's her name? Bhikkhu Dibley. Oh, God. The Christmas one, where she's invited to lunch at everyone's place and she has to not offend everyone because, when you're ordained, you accept what's offered. And so she went to all of these, and then it showed her crawling along the pavement with indigestion, sorry, not digestion. That was a point. She couldn't digest, there was too much. So you overeat, you get indigestion, more suffering, and even people die from overeating. People die from indigestion, right? Right. This is a fact. So we might say, oh, poor thing, they had some digestive ailment. But if you look, the real cause of the problem is that self-cherishing mind, not satisfied, but wanting more and more food, say, in that example. So you could say you died from the self-cherishing thought. Couldn't you? Yeah, could be true. So even when we're not responsible, and we know this, that, if we're falsely accused, or you're robbed of your possessions, or you're killed, I'd say that the cause of this is the self-cherishing thought. It may not be in this life. You might say, but I've never robbed anyone in this life. I've never killed anyone, right? Why is it happening to me? And we would say that's the result of our past karma ripening in this life. I was talking to someone yesterday who's not a dear friend, who's not Buddhist, but every so often she wants to have Buddhist take on this, and some member of her family who's going, oh no, anyway, someone, a friend, terrible, I don't know if it's cancer or terrible illness anyway. And so I didn't say, oh, it's all past karma, because people, if you're not Buddhist, they might hear, oh, it's all your fault. And, karma's always bad. Do you notice? All the examples are always bad. Of course, no, karma's not. We have a lot of virtuous karma. Ta-da, here we are. But in any case, I just mentioned to her, what did I mention to her? I mentioned to her about, as a human being, I mentioned, well, we do believe in many lives and different realms of existence. So I said, as a human being, we can do something about it. We've got the medical profession, we've got all these conditions. As an animal, they're just pathetically, you might have, as an animal, you might have a nice owner if you're a pet. But other than that, you can't do much. You just feel like it's never going to end. As a human, it's enough to feel like it's never going to end. But when we do get through something, we feel that relief of that. So we know that those experiences. So anyway, so we've got to look at, okay, in past lives, given that we've had countless past lives, we've been there, we've done everything, good, bad, and indifferent. We've done it all multiple times. And so this particular karma ripening. Isn't it good that it's ripening for me right now in the 21st century, when I can get all the medical treatments and so forth, and I live in a place where they're accessible, et cetera, all the conditions coming together. But we, in terms of counteracting this self-cherishing thought, we look at, due to my egotistical mind, what do you mean, me? Never did anything wrong, So I'm one of 6. I've got 5 siblings, one of 6. And when I was young, I don't know how big I was, my mother, anyway, one day I came home from school and she said, show me your hands. And she did this to all of us. And what she was looking for was somebody was nicking the coins on her dresser in her room. And so she put some, she put something on it, I guess. How creative of her, I guess. Oh, very, very creative. And so she was looking to see if you had those. It must have been laundry blue or something, because it was blue. She was looking for blue. Anyway, I was, how dare you even think? It was me, etc. Right? The big I comes up. This is the I that causes us all our problems. I could have, if I was mature and had met the Dharma and all of that, gone, well, you can have a look at my hands. I wouldn't even think of it. I wouldn't dream of it. I'm so sorry. Can I help? No, I wasn't. I was like, me? Poor pity me? This is what we do, isn't it? So we experience the results of those sufferings, and it says to blame that all on the ego, this self-cherishing mind, is the point to do here. So we can see, just looking in our day-to-day life, how much problems our self-cherishing, for example, that this is a classic example given, you hold yourself in high esteem. For example, in my case, I grew up being told that education was the most important thing. So my thing was to get good marks, right? My thing is still to get good marks.
I was thinking of what's changed.
What's changed, I know. 85.6%. I was so upset. All I had to do was pass. That was the other week. Anyway, see the I. So you feel you're so great, and then you meet someone who's better than you, who got 100%, and you become really miserable, so jealous. Or maybe you think they cheated. Or actually, you couldn't cheat this exam because, anyway, I don't think. And when you meet someone who's on equal to you, you want to compete with them. So we have this in the world, in business, in all these sorts of things, you're always wanting to be on top, that competitive attitude, which actually is encouraged. It's encouraged in schools and, to get that. In sport, most definitely. Yes. Actually, was it skating? There was one story in skating where there was some terrible, like, vendetta type thing.
Oh, with the marine, with the...
What was it?
The Tonya Hardy.
Yes. What was it?
She was gosh, 80s
Yeah.
or 90s.
Yeah.
And there was a rivalry between herself and another.
Rivalry, competition.
Like, who was going to get into the Olympics?
Yes, get into the Olympics. Yeah.
That I could get it wrong.
Yeah.
But in the end,
Didn't one get attacked? Knifing or?
For someone to attack her. So
yeah.
The damage.
So I can win.
So she could get.
The only way I can get to the Olympics is if I put you out of action. Yeah. That's pretty barbaric, isn't it? Reminds me how His Holiness says, elevate yourself above the animal level. These are not claws. These are not fangs. They're soft. We're made to love, not to tear each other apart.
Actually, sorry, I watched them. I think you're saying to that upbringing and for something, and I think it's a good example of how something has created her, and apparently she never there was some sort of really difficult situation with her husband, and her husband actually organized to stop the Nancy Kerrigan in the leg, and she had nothing to do with it. Apparently, she suffered.
Oh, she had nothing to do with it. So it wasn't her competition. It was her husband had organised for that to happen.
Tried to
yes.
get an advantage for her, and she
yeah.
But the films or the movies also a good example of like the suffering we go through.
Yes.
How that,
the suffering we go through, and
yeah, a terrible mother.
Yeah.
She had quite a hard life, and not the advantage.
Yes.
No, yeah.
And we think it's terrible that people have a hard life, but different hardships. But for us, let's say, moving away from these stories, that we can, it's useful to think about in our ordinary lives, but for us to actually not only endure, but almost embrace hardship, or as I say, just not too much, all at once, so that we progress on the bodhisattva path. We're able to, it takes a mind of courage. That's the doorbell. Our lovely doorbell.
It might be the kids.
Yeah, it might be the kids. Sorry. Yeah, so we can be able to endure more and more hardships. Now, I'm not saying we've all got to wear hair shirts or anything like that. But just notice how much can I just maybe not complain about it. That would be a good start. You know, yes. Oh, it's so hot. Oh, yeah, everyone's experiencing that. Actually, it's not so hot today. It's nice and pleasant and cool, which we love. And it's not raining. You're probably getting rain, are you, Lee? Maybe. Yeah, of course she is. Anyway, so then we meet someone who's, we perceive to be lower than us. And so we put them down, we point out their faults because now I can be on top of them. It's sort of like bullies in the schoolyard, isn't it? Yeah. So in this way, using real life examples to say, yeah, these things happen. I may not be doing these things, but I see that self-cherishing mind, myself and others, brings about all the suffering because we have to convince ourselves. It's just like, yeah, but it really was their fault. I didn't do a thing. I did not take that money, Mum. Whatever. Yes.
A way to frame it in your mind would be, well, I didn't do anything in this life, but I must have done something.
Yes. If I didn't do it in this life, I must have done something in the past life. Who knows how many lifetimes ago, and who knows how much it's multiplied in the meantime. And so, because often we think, oh, but this is so unfair. I think that was a mantra when I was a child. And then you meet the Dharma and you realize, oh, actually, I created the causes for that. And so we look at it and go, yeah, I must have created the causes for that. And don't try and work out what the causes were because you'll just drive yourself crazy and give yourself a really bad time. But just rest that in equanimity. Yeah. Well, or as my Jewish friends would say, another karmic debt repaid, rejoice. Another karmic debt repaid. Of course, if things are really intense, we're not sitting there going another karmic debt repaid, but we can train ourselves, to orient in that way. Okay. So self-grasping at this truly existent me that I've got an elaborate story about. I've got many elaborate stories about. Would you like to hear them all? Or as Bette Midler said, that's enough about me. What do you think about me? I wouldn't ask that question, by the way, just in case. So we continuously think about this over and over again, about the disadvantages of the self-cherishing thought, the advantages of cherishing others. So taking care of others rather than oneself. It doesn't mean neglect yourself, because if we don't take care of ourselves, there's no way we can take care of others. But not just focusing on ourselves and how the world's impacting us all the time, but how am I impacting the world? And how do I want to impact the world? Like, a lot of people don't even consider that question in their life. I think a lot of people do, but a lot of people don't. So we've got to then consider the disadvantages also of getting caught up just in this life, worldly concerns. I mean, enjoy the delicious chocolate, cake, whatever. But, the advantages of preparing minimally for the best possible conditions in a future life. So that's what we're here doing. That's our minimum. So this is the sort of things that we need to do. So we've got this outline in our notes about the disadvantages of self-cherishing. This is from the classic presentation. So this self-cherishing has caused me to stay locked in this prison of samsara, which is an experience of suffering. Now, yes, we do talk about suffering a lot and Four Noble Truths and so forth. There's number one and number two. But we have to also say at many levels, this life is not one of suffering. And this is why, we have a lot of comfort in our life. It seems increasingly more and more. Things get more and more comfortable. I was trying to get some tissue boxes for Geshe-la's visit that didn't have something added, not the box, but the tissues, trying to get some tissues that didn't have something added to it. And I said to Pekka, why do they always have aloe vera or something added? She says, oh, so your nose doesn't, it's nice and sensitive and soft on your nose. Good heavens. Really?
I'm assuming
We're getting softer. Yeah, it's true. So we're looking for, of course, enjoy the comforts while you have them, and just think this is also my good karma ripening, blessings. But the suffering aspect, so the more I am propelled by my root ignorance, but also the afflicted states of mind, pride, jealousy, anger, all of this, the more I'm compelled to suffer again and again and again, not just in this lifetime, but lifetime to lifetime. And watch out, it may not be such a happy existence. Next time may not be a precious human rebirth, as we've talked about how rare that is. So by letting the afflictions, the deluded states, anger, attachment, jealousy, pride, rule my mind, it's kept me locked in this root ignorance that continually obsessed by countless problems. The complaining mind. My friend who said he would end relationships while they were still good just because at some point they'd go bad. Consequently, I think for the last, as far as I'm aware, the last 20 odd years, he hasn't had a relationship. Maybe he's happy with that. But that wouldn't make sense either, because if he's happy with that, he'd have to get into a relationship so he could be unhappy. Anyway, it's a weird way of thinking. And all of this being ruled by the afflictions and, having to deal with the consequences prevents me from progressing on the path towards enlightenment. Right now we say, do I say, yes, I can become a Buddha. I will become a Buddha. I must. Or do we say, I don't know if I can. Or it seems like a long way away. Lama Yeshe says the worst, most disgusting form of laziness. We don't think that mind is lazy, do we? We probably think, but that's the truth. Check up and see. So all of that self-doubt as well, it stops us progressing on the path towards enlightenment, reaching enlightenment. And then because of that, so if I don't progress on the path, then I won't gain the realizations of the path. So it prevents me from gaining the realizations of the path. And that's what I want. We say it every time in our motivation, in our, going for refuge, everything. It's my motivation. It's my motivation for being. But how am I stopping myself from gaining realizations? And even to enjoy the temporary happinesses of this life. So say you go out for a meal with your family, with your partner, with whoever, and then you're fighting. Are you enjoying the meal? You're not. Let's go out and have a nice meal and then fight with each other at the meal. It's not enjoyable. So many different ways we have to see, how am I preventing myself actually enjoying? I was talking the other day about the meditation on that's become very popular on chocolate. And if you really savor, like Thich Nhat Hanh wrote a book called Savor, it's wonderful. Savor, that you actually, it used to be classically a raisin or a sultana or something, but now everyone's like in Vajrayana Institute of the, we had the Happiness and Its Causes conference, and invariably at one of the conferences, one of the presenters would come up and say, now I want to lead people in a meditation on chocolate. Can you help me? I'm just like, how original. But if you actually savor you bliss out, you know, just maybe even with the smell of it. I don't know. Maybe you don't even need to have it. Just the thought of it. Or whatever, you know, substitute the appropriate desirous taste. Excuse me. Yeah. So because of this, particularly this root ignorance, but my confused state of mind and then these afflictive state of minds, you know, we talk about when we're listening to the Dharma, to listen, you know, not with a sort of leaky pot and upturned pot and contaminated, dirty pot and all of this sort of thing. But our minds confuse all of that. And so that impacts how much we are able to understand the Dharma, and even more so, how much we're able to practice. Even we want to practice, isn't it like, yeah, but I'm too busy. Yeah, but something, right? Because we don't realize, as Lama Yeshe said, if you could see what I see, you wouldn't sleep at night, in the sense of the sense of urgency of that. We probably get a sense of urgency where things are going really badly, or you get some awful news like in 2011 when Lama Zopa Rinpoche manifested stroke and we were down on retreat with Rinpoche in Bendigo. Boy, did we practice like they say, practice like your hair's on fire. We, you know, didn't have much hair, even less now. But all night we were all there in the Gompa reciting all these things and and then everyone around the world heard, and then everyone's frantically practicing. And then fortunately Rinpoche was able to teach, because it was like, have we just had the last teaching ever, you know, from Rinpoche? Of course, in Rinpoche's, in the, you know, the body that we know of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, we have had the last teaching. Yeah. Yes.
That seemed quite childish, but I think you mentioned that Rinpoche, when he was still alive, he was praying to be reborn in kilograms.
Oh, that was a story about someone else, not about Lama Zopa Rinpoche. He may have also, but it was another Lama who prayed to be reborn in the hell realms. And as he was passing from this life, had a vision of, oh, I failed. I'm going to the Pure Land. Yeah.
I was just wondering about that. Right.
Well, it's interesting because that was sort of the sentiment of Osho when he said a few things. He said, you know, you're all grasping at having the guru come back quickly. But his point was, well, he made a couple of points. One was, give Rinpoche a break, let him rest in the Pure Lands for a while. So it was quite nice. And the other one was, he said, you know, my advice to the Dalai Lama would be, or he might have even made that advice to the Dalai Lama, or whoever, to leave the child alone, and like not announce, let them have a normal childhood until 7 years old, that sort of age where you start to be independent and or see yourself separate from family. I'm trying to remember Piaget, whatever. I don't even know if Piaget superseded, I'm not sure. But that sort of development, that normal childhood development, but also saying that from his context, because his experience, he didn't have that. And so at least from 18 months old, he was in the limelight, you know. Okay, Geshe Zopa shared a discussion. Yes.
I feel it's time having one night she was talking about the importance of what what the teacher brings to the teacher and the carer and the attendant brings to the child.
Yes.
His perspective might be very
Yeah, because their experience is very different. Their experience is being with, like, Geshe Zopa, I guess, being the attendant, the carer, the dad for Punsol Rinpoche. And he's still his, you know, still his responsibility for him, I think, for life, in terms of making sure, you know, supporting him. Because a lot of this happens a lot, you know, the Geshes in training and so forth, and they have one or more students at this they're supporting for life. And of course we see that. So it's a different experience from their point of view, different lens.
I think they're both presenting similar benefits of the child having
A child having, yeah, and if you see what happened with Punsol Rinpoche and with Geshe Zopa bringing Punsol Rinpoche to Perth in secret and letting him have that education, and so that up until 12, so that now he's in the Sarah J, topping all his classes, doing, I mean, he was doing that when he was here. The school he went to offered him a scholarship all the way through university if he stayed here. But he was going to a bigger university in India. Because they could see, they didn't know who he was, but they could see this kid had some rather special qualities. He prevented, or he talked a fellow student when he was 10 out of suicide. Yeah, not a normal 10-year-old. But how wonderful for that, you know, he saved that child's life at that point. So, yes, so all those little kids who managed to have to spend those years with Punsol Rinpoche, who do we know? You know, we don't know who's who. But also, just coming back to your question, Yvonne, because from our point of view, yes, we might say self-cherishing. Self-cherishing in a way of, well, is it self-cherishing? Is it our bodhicitta motivation? Because it all depends on our motivation. I want the Lama for me, but what do I want a Lama for? I want them to return, to continue to turn the wheel of Dharma, to continue to be of benefit in the world, including me, but great benefit in the world. And this is where, you know, our advice about relating to a spiritual teacher, if we don't keep requesting, like we've got the swift return prayers, if we don't keep requesting, they say, oh, they don't want me down there. Well, I'm getting offers all over the place. Yeah. So if I keep with this afflicted state of mind, I'm only going to continue to suffer more and more. In other words, it destroys my future prospects as well, just like in the past. Like, how's it gone for me so far, right? And even those beings, helpful living beings, you know, previously we had talked about, you know, reflecting on the kindness of others, even when not our mothers and so forth. Even they, and even inanimate objects become our enemies that destroy us. So again, an example, when I was a child, I was a very young child at this point, and I fell on the pavement and probably grazed my knee. Anyway, you know, you have that crying. And then my mother said, smack the pavement, that hurt you. Well, it was me who fell. The pavement didn't jump up to hurt me. But I felt good smacking the pavement. It did work at that moment, but I was a young child. As an adult, you know, smacking the pavements. I could be killing ants. Okay, so, you know, even our body then becomes our enemy. Our possessions become our enemy. We've got to protect it all. You know, everything becomes a burden. It's like, oh, no, I need the insurance. Now I need, like my friends who, to avoid the tax bracket, and, you know, had their apartment, bought the apartment for the kids. And they're like, oh, we better buy a yacht to keep their tax down. They didn't even say. becomes a burden. Less is more. Freedom. So, due to our grasping at this self that doesn't exist, we've created much negative karma, pursuing our own happiness, particularly when it's been at the expense of others, or I've got to establish my good reputation. Now, or keep a good reputation. And you can see this playing out in a few courtrooms around the place. Yeah, at great expense. Just the financial expense I'm talking about, let alone everything else. Destroyed reputations and yeah. And it's just like, just give up. Just stop. What for? Destroying your careers, destroying, and making yourself destitute. And I'm clearly not talking about that one over there in the US. I don't think there's any.
Yeah, that's a different ball game.
That's a different ball game. But we see it play again and again and again and again. And it's always a terrible outcome. And it's just from all this, I've got to protect my reputation. Well, you haven't got a reputation anymore to protect, actually. I'd rather just be quiet because you're only embarrassing us. Oh, dear. So, and we become jealous of others who have things that we don't have, like the guy, over east who one of the teachers talked about, who I think I've mentioned, who the teacher got a new car and the guy next door keyed one side and then came back and keyed the other side, and then she realised he liked golf. Because someone said, she was talking about it at a party that FPMT people, like-minded Dharma people were there. And one said, what would Lama Zopa Rinpoche do? And so she went and bought golf balls and found out that he'd been in the concentration camp. Well, first of all, he said, nobody ever gives me something. Which is like, yeah, I wonder why that might be. But giving a gift, and totally the whole story transformed then. And then you have great compassion for the suffering that he's been through and so forth. Rather than, well, he was acting out of jealousy. Or you're proud of being rich and powerful. And again, as time goes on, we can see how the rich and powerful fall. There's nothing reliable in that. Or we're quick to anger. We break our relationships with friends, with family, with others, don't get along with our teachers and family, so forth. They are very distressed that families don't get along together. If you think you've got so much shared experience, and I'm not saying it's easy to get along together. There was one of the students here who passed away in 2020. I met her in January and she passed away, I think it was about 6 months later. And she'd been talking about her relationship with her brother, and that she'd reached out to let him know that, because they weren't talking, that, she was dying and so forth. And she heard nothing from him, and she just kept saying, I've done what I can from my side. So her mind was at peace, because we've got no control of how other people respond, but we have got control over how we engage, rather than blaming others for our problem, put the blame onto the one. Okay. So then looking at then the advantages of cherishing others. So here in the Guru Puja, LC 92, the next one, contemplating the advantages of cherishing others, the mind that cherishes all mother beings and would secure them in bliss, we can say the bliss of liberation or enlightenment, is the gateway leading to infinite virtue. In other words, our accumulation of virtue, our ripening of the positive states of mind, seeing this, I seek your blessings to cherish these beings, to practice cherishing these beings and then get better at it and get better at it and get better at it, to cherish them more than my life. You know, would I be prepared to die for them? We think about it, more than my life. Even should they rise up as my enemies. So you can see that this is a pretty tough gig, being a bodhisattva in training, L plates on. Pretty tough gig, isn't it? Even they rise up as my enemies, says, even if the whole world's against me, I won't give up. Won't give up on them. So this is a courageous state of mind in the 8 verses of thought transformation. Actually, it's here, isn't it? Page 85. Well, verse 5 is the one that really grabs this. When out of envy, so we've got to say, out of envy, others mistreat me with abuse, insults, or the like, I accept defeat and offer the victory to others. So that's more in line with the giving the golf balls. But starting right at the first verse, determined to obtain the greatest possible benefit from all sentient beings who are more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel. Why? Because a wish-fulfilling jewel might be, you know, these mythical wish-fulfilling, it's like Aladdin's lamp, I think. What is it? No, it's not. Is that Aladdin's lamp? The genie in the lamp, and you rub it and your wishes? Yeah, that's the wish-fulfilling jewel, which doesn't exist. But sentient beings are more precious. Why? Because on the basis of other sentient beings, I become enlightened, you know, dealing with all their ways in which they aggravate me and the ways I've got to work harder and have patience and so forth. I hold them most dear at all times. That's what we're aiming for. So just looking at so supporting this, the quote from Sir Shantideva's in the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. Where he says all happiness of the world comes from this mind of bodhicitta. From happiness comes from wishing to benefit others. And the 7-point thought transformation, Geshe Chakwa says, meditate on the great kindness of all sentient beings. So when we do the say Vajrasattva practice, and we have the 4 opponent powers. So we have the first one, well, depending on there's various iterations of the order, but the one on reliance. So sometimes we say refuge. Yes, the first part of that is refuge. We go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Reliance on the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Reliance on the Guru. The second half of that is reliance or dependence on other sentient beings, because it's really in our ways of training our mind in relation to other sentient beings, particularly those ones who rise up as our enemies, so-called, who I perceive as an enemy, particularly those ones that by transforming how I respond to them, then I progress on the path to enlightenment. So they're very kindly being my, as they say, kind teacher. Have you got patience yet? Have you got this yet? Have you got that yet? No. Okay, a bit more work to do. And that chapter on patience, actually some of you were here yesterday when Gen Sondhu was teaching and recommending, particularly chapter 6, the chapter on patience from Bodhisattva's Way of Life. It goes through every permutation you can think of anger and how to reframe and respond differently, how to use reasoning. So, you know, using different quotations to think about the advantages of cherishing others, and thinking that everything that I have, all the happiness that I have of this life and all lives, comes from this altruistic mind, comes from cherishing others. Why? Because if I cherish others and say, on the basis of having taken refuge vows, then I'm not going to go around killing others. So abandon killing, deliberately killing. Okay. And what's that? It's a cause for what? A good, higher rebirth, and also to have a long life. And so having a long life, having a precious human rebirth, comes from cherishing others who then provide me the opportunity to engage with the Dharma again. Having perfect wealth, you know, is from abandoning stealing and, of course, practicing generosity, which is another cause for a precious human rebirth. So this is on the basis of cherishing others. So it's counteracting this grasping mind that says, no, it's mine. It's mine. Precious. And then in the Bodhisattva's way of life, it says, there's no need to elaborate more on this. Just look at childish beings who work for their own benefit and the Buddhas who work for the benefit of others. I think it says here, yes, LC 93. In brief, infantile beings labor only for their own ends, while Buddhas work solely for the welfare of others, with a mind understanding the distinctions between the failings of one and the advantages of the other. I seek your blessings to enable me to equalize and exchange myself with others. So then the idea is we look at, well, without going into detail, just looking at the differences. It says, look at the difference between these two types of beings and their actions, the ones who are self-cherishing, and what's the difference between that and Shakyamuni Buddha, for example. So you can think that Shakyamuni Buddha previously, beginning his past lives, had a life just like us, trapped in cyclic existence. And at some point, he began to cherish others, right? Practicing altruism, and was able to become enlightened, not just in that one lifetime, because if you read the Jataka tales, very good, previous lives of the Buddha, in this life he was a Chavi youth, and what he did in this life, and this life, and this life, and you can see many, many, many lives of accumulation of merit, of cherishing others, giving his life to the body to the tigress when he was a prince, so that she didn't eat her cubs, and then instead he offered his own body to herself and the cubs. Advanced technique up there in the Bodhisattva levels. We are forbidden to do that. Just do not do it. I'm quite happy to be forgiven. So Bongko Rinpoche talks about this one famous meditator, great meditator in Tibet, Drupal, not in Tibet, he was Drupal Kagyu. Anyway, so he was in Tibet, sorry. He was in Tibet. He says he went to Lhasa, and he went to the Jolkang, so where the main temple with the famous Jowa Shakyamuni Buddha statue. And so what you do is you go in, and of course you make prostration, you pay homage and circumambulate and so forth. And he did all this. He circumambulated the statue, he received blessings, and then he stood directly in the front of the Jowa's Buddha statue and said, in the past, you and I were the same, but then you began to practice altruism and take care of others and have become a perfect Buddha. I've been taking care only of myself and I'm still in samsara. Indeed, I do need to prostrate. Right? So he was said to be a rather unconventional teacher. And then sometime later he said at another time he said, I've lost 3 very important, precious things. And so then he was asked, well, what are those? He says, well, one precious thing I lost is ignorance. Another is desire. Another is aversion. 3 poisons, right? I've lost these 3 things, which others regard as important and cherish so much. So indication of his achievements, but, you know, sort of presented it in a funny way. Now, in terms of achievements, we have also, you know, His Holiness the Dalai Lama speaking more and more about giving hints about his achievements. And so as we heard again from Gensondu yesterday, that in a recent teaching with His Holiness, he said, basically he was saying, I am the same mind stream as King Trisong Detsen, who was one of the 3 Dharma kings of Tibet. So he was like the 2nd Dharma king in the 8th century. So he was responsible for inviting Guru Rinpoche to Tibet when the Dharma was getting a bit confused. And yeah, so he was responsible for then the establishment, consequently, of the Nyingma tradition, Samye monastery, and so forth, and many, many holy objects in Tibet. So His Holiness has, you know, validated that, yes, you indeed, you can confidently have faith that I am Trisong Detsen. Okay, yes.
Noting that this question comes from my ignorance in timeline of the order of events.
Yeah, it was before the Dalai Lama's.
It was.
Yes.
It was. I was trying to work.
Yeah.
Did you go on a side, you know,
well,
quest and then come back?
Well, it is possible,
yeah,
to emanate in multiple entities at the same time. This is what Buddhas do. They can manifest as many bodies as atoms of the earth. So even though His Holiness has said that, we don't know how many other manifestations he has going on in all other realms of existence as well. You know, we don't know. He's specifically mentioned that one. So it is possible. And for example, Phuntsog Rinpoche, who we were mentioning earlier, so a reincarnation of Geshe Lama Kongtrul. Geshe Lama, well, known to the world, Geshe Lama Kongtrul also, there's a young woman now, I keep saying girl, but she's she's older than Phuntsog Rinpoche. So she was actually recognized. She was born before Geshe Lama Kongtrul passed as being a reincarnation, sort of reincarnation. I don't know what you call it at that point, but being his tuku. So they were both. It's not contradictory. And at some point, Lama Zopa was asked, well, why isn't she, you know, in public? And he said, because of her particular sensitivity, she's being protected from taking on that role. Now, Oso's talked about the difficulty of having that role, you can see, so that she can get on with things, basically. So I think that's wonderful, you know. It's Scottish.
So that's
she was affirmed by, you know, she's been, you know, many, many years ago.
So, yeah. So where the majority have where?
Yeah, where and when.
This is obviously very language to be able to say, to predetermine.
They do predetermine. So we talk about, you know, if you've got control over the death process, like we talk about the clear light of death and how these beings who have control over that look forward to the clear light of death, to engage in whatever practices they're going to do. And so they decide how long they're going to be in the clear light of death before they stop. Well, I don't know if it's before they stop breathing or at what point they do that, but beforehand they determine that. And also, like when you look at the, search for the Dalai Lamas and so forth, they give some hints. They're always so obscure, these hints. It's like somebody understands them. So obscure. And but anyway, they give some hint about their rebirth. So they've already decided where they're taking rebirth, right? And it's going to be where it's most beneficial. But at the same time, they might have decided to be somewhere else and somewhere else and somewhere else. So we know about where they've decided, well, when they're recognized, where they take rebirth in this world system, because that's the world system we're in, but we don't know about other emanations that can happen. And then even so, like I can't remember the whole story, but there was one story where it was something about a dog. I'm not talking about Maitreya. Or something about a dog, and whatever happened, someone said, "Oh, that was an emanation of His Holiness." It was in Dharamsala. I can't remember the details of the story. So all sorts of things can be happening. We have no idea. Okay. Yeah. Meanwhile, back on ground Earth, here we are, creating the causes. Well, maybe to be able to do the same ourselves, Well, not maybe, yes, to do the same ourselves. But at the moment, we are where we are. Okay. We talked about that. Let me look. I've missed. Yeah. So the advantages of cherishing others. Everything we do then becomes in the service of others. If we're, to the extent that we've got Dharma on our mind, it's in the service of the Dharma, bodhicitta, as Lama Zopa Rinpoche, so much emphasis on training our mind in the bodhisattva attitude with every action that we do the day. And it's taking that opportunity to train out. The reason we're doing that is not to beat ourselves up when we don't do it, but to train our mind. We see it as training. The more I think about it, the more I'm creating the causes for it to become spontaneous bodhicitta, where it's just naturally arising. At the moment, I'm not there yet, but habituating the mind with that. I mean, that's what all our meditation is, but also throughout the day, just having those thoughts. So, for example, when we get to, we haven't got there yet. We have to get there. I'm keeping an eye on the time so we can do the meditation. So here, everything becomes for the service of others. Even everything we're actually doing already, like when we eat, isn't it? Once you've taken refuge, it says, now before you eat, before you drink, offer to others. Of course, you're going to eat and drink it, but offer it to others. And the more beautifully we do that visualization, the more we make it value added in terms of offering. Think of it offering, to be delicious nectar to all the beings of all the 6 realms of existence. So here we're cultivating this mind of compassion and loving kindness towards others here, receive this as delicious nectar. And of course, when we are familiar with the particular sufferings of different realms of existence, we can take a long time in doing that, just like Lama Zopa, who I remember here one time there was a dinner. And of course, we all know that Lama Zopa Rinpoche take a long time in making the offerings. So it's like, do not have a hot dinner. Make sure it tastes nice cold. And the offering was 45 minutes. Right. We did all get to actually eat, but it took a while, right? That's how it is. When you're a being who realizes the importance of, making all those offerings to others, and then to our gurus, to the Buddhas, the Bodhisattvas, and our own, Buddha nature in a way, visualizing Shakyamuni Buddha at the heart. And then every mouthful, every sip is delicious nectar. Buddha blisses out, you bliss out. What can be more enjoyable? You really enjoy it then. So if you're in a cafe or a restaurant, you don't have to sort of go over the top, but you can visualize all of that before you start eating and drinking, like if you're with people. Okay, so everything that's done for the benefit of others becomes pure done, because it's coming from that altruistic heart, that good heart. And then it's aimed at freeing others from samsara and being the best cause for their happiness. So as Geshe Doga said about the four immeasurables, visualizing yourself, may you have happiness in its causes, yourself being a precious Dharma jewel, offering that to others. It's beautiful. So as Shanti Davis said, if I do not actually exchange my happiness for the suffering of others, and this is where we're getting to the Tonglen giving, taking, giving, taking, for the suffering of others, I shall not attain the state of Buddhahood, and even in cyclic existence, I will have no joy. So it's win-win. Want more joy? Offer to others. So this is where we're getting to the Tonglen practice we'll do in a minute. I just want to bring attention to that in the Guru Puja. So page 89, LC 95. This verse that we recite 3 times. It used to be that it was recited once and you just kept going through. But Pabonka Rinpoche, into himself, in his own practice, when he'd get to this point, would recite this 3 times. And so then subsequently it's become that practice. And then the visualization to do along with it, this is our older version, but I think, I'm not sure if it's in the current version, it's in the retreat book where Lama Zopa Rinpoche says, so you do it 3 times, and then Lama Zopa Rinpoche says, if you haven't completed the meditation, then pause here, right? You think, what meditation? I was just reciting and trying to keep up with everybody. Usually when we do it as a group, there is a practice. So we have the 100,000, as we know, 100,000 Vajrasattva, 100,000 prostrations, 100,000 mandala offerings, these Nyondro practices. So there is one of 100,000 of reciting this verse, right? But we can also familiarize with this verse and recite it as we're doing all those daily things. Like if we know it off by heart, we can have it in our mind stream and use that as a practice throughout the day. And thus, perfect, pure, compassionate gurus, I seek your blessings that all karmic debts, obstacles, and suffering of mother beings may, without exception, in other words, friends, enemies, strangers, may without exception, of either their sufferings or of the immeasurable beings, ripen upon me right now, knowing that we can't actually take their suffering literally on, okay? Even you're a Buddha, you can't do it. May it ripen on me right now. In other words, you're wanting them to be free of it. That's your immeasurable compassion. And that I may give my happiness and virtues to others. So I give you all my health, all my love, all my kindness, all my compassion, because these things are immeasurable. It's not like I'm giving you all and there's nothing left for me. By giving more, we create more. That's the idea. And thereby invest all beings in bliss. Bliss of liberation, bliss of enlightenment. So when we're reciting 3 times, in the first time, so this is a thing of taking and giving. So one instruction is the first time we can think that we're taking on all the afflictions of all sentient beings. We talk about afflictive obscurations, which if we take all that on and they're free, then they achieve liberation. We can visualize. Right. And then with the second round, we visualize that we're taking on all the obscurations to omniscience. So not the manifest afflictions, but the residual that's left, like they say, the smell of the garlic in the jar. The garlic's gone, but the smell is still there. That's what it says in the text. So that imprint on the mind. So we visualize that we're doing that. And with the third round, we visualize that all the impurities of their body and mind get transformed and they become a Buddha. So that's the way to, that's a way, that's advice to visualize as we're reciting that. Okay. I think we would need to do the meditation.
Just one thing quickly. On the third round, you said all impurities of their body and mind.
And they transform into a Buddha. So we talk about the 32 major marks, 80 minor signs of a Buddha. So we talk about the 32 impurities of the body. So they all purified into the major marks and minor signs of a Buddha. So there, I place them in Buddhahood, just like that. One day we'll actually be able to do it. Right now, we're training. Okay, meditation. So this, so generally with the practice of Tonglen, it's said to start with ourselves, like with many of our practices, start with ourselves. So I'm just, in the time we have, this one will just be using one's own problems. It makes it very real and potent for us. Right. So sitting comfortably, back straight, relax into whatever posture. And just bringing your awareness into the space of the body and onto the breath and just being aware of the natural rhythm of the breath. In fact, when we get good at this practice, it said, to alternate it, riding on the breath. So the way we alternate it at the moment, we're alternating compassion, which is the taking, and love, which is the giving. The compassion that says, may you be free of suffering and its causes, and the love that says, may you have happiness and its causes. So that's one way we can interpret that instruction of alternating. And then when we get very familiar with it, it says, we do the practice riding on the breath, but not right now. So just settling down, settling in, focusing on your breath. And just check up for yourself. We've been contemplating this, but check up for yourself in your own experience. What has been the result of my self-centered, self-cherishing attitude? Has it brought me the happiness I want? Has it prevented me experiencing problems? Just check up. And on the basis of that, generate the wish to become less focused on yourself and more loving and caring towards others. And one way we do this is through this practice of Tonglen. And then call to mind a problem, a difficulty, something you're experiencing or have experienced recently. comes back at time and time again. Not the too hard basket, just start with something small. Might be an uncomfortable feeling, some pain or illness or some emotional hurt. So just pick one thing, not everything. Allow that to arise in your mind, and notice how the mind doesn't want it to arise and wants to push it away. That's normal, that's natural. And so from that one specific problem, difficulty, ailment, think, I'm not the only person in the world experiencing this. And think of others, maybe others you know, or who may be experiencing this problem, this difficulty, or something similar. Maybe even a greater degree than yourself. For example, if you've lost a loved one, you can think how many people in the wars, Gaza, Ukraine, have lost many, whole families, whole communities. Whatever the situation, wherever you're called to mind, using your own problem. Think how wonderful it would be if all people, including myself, were free of this suffering, wishing that. And then decide that you'll accept to take on your own experience of the problem with a compassionate wish that all those others be free of that suffering, letting go of any resistance, any fear, any aversion towards your problem, and just allow your mind to settle in a gentle, peaceful acceptance of it. You say, why fight it? It's there. Accepting it just as it is. And then visualizing that suffering, that problem, that difficulty is like in the form of thick, dark smoke, your own and the others that you've thought about. And imagine taking this dark smoke onto, we say, your heart chakra, not your physical heart, center of your chest, and absorbs into the hard rock of self-cherishing there, smashing it to smithereens, destroying it completely. So both that rock and their suffering of yourself and others you've thought about becomes totally non-existent. Your heart chakra softens, feel a sense of great joy that yourself and whoever else you visualized are now free from their suffering and their problems. Just rest there. And then with the breath out, imagine you're breathing out all your healing, happiness, positive qualities in the form of bright light. Feel that permeate throughout your own body-mind continuum. transforming into whatever will bring joy and peace of mind, whatever is needed. So every cell, every atom of your being, and then it radiates out from your heart towards those others that you visualize, to their heart, bringing them everything they need, which is so much similar to yourself, your own experience, you know. So that their needs, their wishes are fulfilled, their mind is filled with peace, happiness, and that white light permeating every cell, every atom of their being, bringing a sense of bliss and joy. And allow your mind to just rest in that feeling of joyfulness that you've been able to help yourself and those others in this way. And holding your mind in that feeling of joyfulness, that heart connection with others that you've established in this very brief practice. And dedicate all the positive energy of doing this brief meditation to the happiness and enlightenment of all beings. When you're ready, open your eyes, adjust the lights and sides around you. So it can be quite powerful to do this practice. There's many different ways that we can engage in this practice. Like, for example, you have some ailment of the body or so forth, and you visualize taking on, and I'm looking at my knee, visualize taking on all that suffering and offering all the healing. This is literally for our souls, or so forth. And then I think about everyone who's suffering from knee pain that maybe doesn't have the opportunity I have to be able to have that treated and so forth, and visualize taking all that on, phantom knee pain or whatever, you know. Or we can also, in the Lamrim outlines, it goes through each of the 6 realms of existence and visualizing the different sufferings and taking that on. It's good to start like this with ourselves because we want to make it something real. If I start talking about hot hells and cold hells, I've got some analogies, but it's difficult to make it feel connected to what I'm going through. So it's really, really good to make it connected to what we're going through. But we can, of course, we want to expand that out, you know, and as we familiarize with it, you know, there's the classic thing of starting with friends, family, we know what their sufferings are. But then we can think about those in different realms of existence. Even it goes through even the suffering of our gurus, which we may not see it as, you know, Dalai Lama's had cancer, he's had colds, he's had, you know, on the basis of having a body. Lama Zopa Rinpoche manifesting stroke or altitude sickness that then ended up in passing from this life, so forth. So many different ways, and gradually progressing through all the different levels, different kinds of beings, all the way up, bodhisattvas on the grounds. That way we have to familiarize with what their experience is so we can incorporate it into what we're learning. And of course, the too hard basket might be the one you leave till the end, the one I've got real problems with. But I subscribe to fake it till you make it, and if you've got to do it through gritted teeth, and like, I don't really want to be doing it for you, but I will. But if we start with those, it's easier. Then our heart can soften, literally, can soften. Can soften. Alrighty. Any questions about that? Yes.
The question is a thank you about observation. I, for whatever reason, have never heard in that practice to visualize my own suffering.
Absolutely, yeah.
So
it's classic to start with that. Yeah.
I had for other.
Yeah. Not for Tonglen. Yes.
Yeah. Because that was
good. Yeah. Because we've got lots to work with, haven't we?
Yes.
No, it doesn't have to be just physical. It says all the mentals taking off my anger, taking on my. Yeah. Excellent. Wonderful. Okay. So we'll leave that there for today. And I think our next class, because then we have Geshe Sultanla teaching this week and on the weekend. And then we're in Bunbury. So I think the next one's June the 2nd. We've still got 6 perfections to look at. Yeah. Okay. So dedications. Page 8. Gewadi Nududa Lama Sange Drukune Troa Chikya Malupa De Sala Gopa Sho Chanchu Sho Rinpoche Make Panam Ge Kuchi Ge Panyapa Me Payam Gone Gon Kawa Sho. Page 9, the prayer for the long life of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Incomparably kind and supreme Tenzin Gyatso, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling joy, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world. May you have a long life and all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. And the prayer for the swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, peerless teacher, an assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losang father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands. Please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now, holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings. Through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and for mother living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the oceans of the three jewels, and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. And the long life prayer for Tenzin Osul Rinpoche, Lord of Dharma, who in accordance with the dispositions of those to be subdued, makes clear in the light of your well-spoken advice the sacred Ganden tradition, essence of Buddha's teachings. Foremost and holy Lama, to you who are supreme, we make this prayer of supplication. Lama, please.
Leave now.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. And just to mention to those here, yes, as we know, Geshe Sutram's giving teachings. I'm not sure if they're going to be put online. I'm not sure. They are put online. They will be on. So if you go on the Zoom, you go to book. You can
see them.
There's a link online. Okay. So, but for those here, because we've been busy doing our spring clean in autumn, anyway, our preparation for hosting Geshe in this auspicious month of Sakadal. And so we still have a few jobs that need to be done. I noticed that most of them were cobwebbing. There was cobwebbing and cleaning outside. Anyway, there's a list on the table, and when people have done the jobs, or when you do a job, if you tick it off, if you're able to do any of that in the meantime, if you've got a few minutes today, or Monday, we're generally not open, but Tuesday, Wednesday, we'll be here Wednesday morning doing setup stuff. And then Wednesday evening, there's a quick turnaround from 7 to 7:30 with the yogas on, finishes at 7. So if you're able to come, if you're coming and you're able to come a bit earlier just to help set up the chairs and things, that would be great. And yeah, probably we need help on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Just put up your hand and say, I can do something if you like. Okay, thank you, everybody. And come along for the wonderful teachings. Thank you.